Thank you. Gorgeous. Good morning. I am the Reverend Sara Smalley, and I serve this congregation as its minister. You may notice I am wearing my robe and stole today. Not something I usually do. I will explain much later in the service why. It's maybe a small reason, but it was important for me to do so today. More on that later. For now, we bring ourselves more fully into this space with these opening words by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Giving each other courage. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open, hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply in and out. This is a time to practice, because there is still so much good and beauty and joy, but it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on this edge of cynicism, brokenhearted, and still trying to remember laughter and kindness, and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith together. We bring the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith to life together. As we light our chalice, we kindle the power of community and illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love. We join together in lighting the chalice with the words on the screen. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. And a few words about our opening hymn. The First Unitarian Church of Dallas commissioned Shelley Jackson Denham to write a song for their centennial celebration a number of years ago. Denham, as a side note, also wrote a number of songs in the Gray hymnal, including one of my all-time favorites, We Laugh, We Cry. Because of her lifelong commitment to working with and empowering youth, Denham took the opportunity to write a piece based on children's yearning for truth, respect, and engagement for adults. This hymn is meant as a reminder that all children deserve and need compassion, acceptance, commitment, and that they often learn to both give and receive these essential elements of relationship through the simple act of observation. It is also a recognition not all of us got that as children. Because of course, it's not just children who need that. We are all deserving of compassion, and we all, to some degree, wonder if it is really safe here to be afraid or angry or troubled. As Reverend Kimberly Debus says about this hymn, it shows that, quote, what we do matters. How we show love matters. And it matters not only to our children, but to each other and to this hurting world. We need each other to be present for each other as we fight the good fight. It matters. And so please rise in body or spirit as we join together in singing our opening hymn, When I Am Frightened. Number Our time for all ages today is not actually a story, as it often is, but rather an introduction by our new Director of Family Ministries, part-time Director of Family Ministries, Diana McLean. I've known Diana for a number of years, and I am so excited to work with her and for you to get to know her. Here is her video introduction.
Jen, if you just hit the play button, I believe, on the bottom of that video, it will start.
So my intuition is Jen is having some internet issues. I feel like that's not just intuition. Jen, why don't we pause it? Here's a new plan. Welcome, Diana. We're so glad you're here. Yay! And let's send out that video. I'll send it out to announce so everyone gets to see it, including people here. I wish we could have welcomed her during worship. And we will send that video out and not let technical issues derail our excitement about Diana being a part of our community. It is a bummer, though. I was excited for you to meet her. It's going to be great, though. We'll send out the video this week. Thanks, Jen. No worries. And now we will take a breath and move into our time of joys and sorrows. We now move into a time of centering, using the chalice flame to light our candles of compassion. We believe the details of our daily lives are sacred and important, and each week we gather, we share the sorrows and celebrations of this community. And so now we light a candle for all of the simple joys that are sustaining us. And we light another candle in honor of the sorrows and hardships we might be carrying. Today, we also light a candle for Larry and Nita's friend, who just not been spoken aloud. With these candles of compassion illuminating this moment, I invite you to take a few unhurried breaths, to relax your shoulders and soften your gaze or close your eyes as we enter into a time of shared sacred silence. Prayer for the Morning by Odette Fulbright Fulson. Did you rise this morning broken and hung over with weariness and pain and rage tattered from waving too long in a brutal wind? Get up, child. Pull your bones upright, gather your skin and muscle into a patch of sun. Draw breath deep into your lungs. You will need it, for another day calls to you. I know you ache. I know you wish the work were done and you and everyone you have ever loved were on a distant shore, safe and unafraid. But remember this: tired as you are not alone. Here and here and here also, there are others weeping and rising and gathering their courage. You belong to them and they to you. And together we will break through and bend the arc of justice all the way down into our lives. May it be so, and amen.
Our first reading is from Reverend Gretchen Haley. There is a misunderstanding about courage, that it is a matter of fearlessness, that in order to act with courage, you must have no fear. But in these days, I'm pretty sure that would mean not acting at all. Anxiety is a normal response to living in abnormal times. That is, to times such as these. Studies have shown that we act courageously not when we have squelched all our fear, but when we are able to remain connected to some deeper sense of purpose, values, or vision, when we feel a sense of duty in our core. As poet-activist Audre Lorde said, "When I dare to use my strength in the service of my vision, it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid." Courage looks fear in the eyes and says, "So what?" Courage says, "Something matters to me more than this fear. Something motivates me to see beyond fight or flight, to persist with creativity and humor and life-giving generativity, to claim a life of joy, even in the midst of heartache." And this from Brené Brown. Courage is a heart word. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. In one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has changed, and today we typically associate courage with heroic and brave deeds. But in my opinion, this definition fails to recognize the inner strength and level of commitment required for us to actually speak honestly and openly about who we are and about our experiences, good and bad. We will now take our morning offering. This month is Indigenous Peoples Month, and so our Share the Plate recipient is Native Ways Federation. Native Ways Federation is dedicated to uplifting and supporting and advocating for the Native nonprofit sector. They strengthen the circle of giving through their work in promoting more equitable philanthropy in support of Native-led solutions. You may contribute by putting a check, cash or a check made out to UUFN with offering basket on the memo line in the basket. Or you may contribute by getting out your phone and going to our website, uunorthfield.org, clicking on the yellow donate button on the right-hand column, and then selecting Share the Plate. We will now give and receive our morning offering. Thank you for giving as you are able.
Today, I want to share with you a story from our Unitarian Universalist history. But more than that, it's a story that speaks to the timeless spiritual themes of doubt and courage and what happens when we believe in each other. This is the story of Olympia Brown. Olympia Brown was the first woman ordained minister in the United States by a denomination in 1863. She was ordained by the Universalists. Brown was born in 1835 in Michigan to a zealous Universalist family, which means they loved everyone. They believed in education for all, no matter the gender or race, political and economic equality, and an expansive vision of God's love. Olympia dedicated her life to expanding the rights of women in both the religious and political spheres. She was a minister and a suffragette. I count her among my most beloved and revered spiritual ancestors. I call on her courage still. She grounds me in our faith's history and reminds me of my own possibilities. As you might imagine, in the 1800s, the path to ordination for Olympia Brown was not an easy one. First, she had to find a college that would accept a woman, and after many refusals, she was able to attend Antioch College in Ohio, which was founded partially by Horace Mann, a Unitarian and education revolutionary. And then after graduating from Antioch, she had to find a theological school that would accept her. She was denied by many seminaries of the time, unfortunately, including what would become my alma mater eventually, Meadville Theological School, who stated that they felt it was too great a risk to admit a woman. But eventually, the Universalist Divinity School at St. Lawrence University begrudgingly admitted her, stating, I don't know how much better this is, but stating they didn't actually think women should be ministers, but that they would leave it to others to decide. So Olympia enrolled. After graduating, she turned her attention to trying to convince men in power to see her as a religious leader worthy of ordination. Men who were worried ordaining women would bring down the price of preaching. I know. Side note, they were right. Women ministers still get paid less than men. She finally prevailed, and in 1863, she was among the first women ordained by a denomination, the Universalists in the United States. As if that weren't enough determination, amid all of those towering roadblocks firmly put in place by the patriarchy, Reverend Olympia Brown had to deal with the fact that although her truths were strong, her voice was weak, literally weak. And this was a time without microphones. As one biography of Brown notes, one of Brown's first challenges at Divinity School was her high, thin voice. For amusement, her classmates, all men, would gather under her window and recite her sermons in high falsetto voices. In 1864, Brown enrolled at the D.O. Lewis School of Speech, where the school's founder developed a series of exercises to help her build her lung capacity. Brown did the exercises throughout her life and became a powerful public speaker. Neighbors in Racine, Wisconsin, where she was minister of what is now the Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church, often heard her in her garden reciting her sermons to her flowers. This is one of the parts of her story that is most compelling to me. Both the reality and the metaphor of Olympia never giving up on her voice, knowing the world needed to hear her truth. Her voice was mocked as weak, as feminine, and yet she would be heard. And I still hear her speaking. Do the hard work you need to do. Strengthen that quiet voice that is longing to be expressed, and then amplify the truth. Raise your voice and join in the chorus calling out for courage and demanding justice. Of course, Olympia could not do this alone, and at one point, or maybe many points, she was ready to give up. She had been listening to and learning from men exclusively her entire life, men who told her her very being was unworthy of being a religious leader. And she had no role model for how a different future might be possible. But then during her early years at Antioch College, Olympia invited a prominent woman of the time to speak there. That woman was Antoinette Brown. Antoinette Brown, no relation, even though they share the same last name, was a Congregationalist minister. Antoinette was the first woman ordained by a single church, not a denomination, in the United States in 1835, a full decade before Olympia Brown was the first woman ordained by the Universalists. These two women, Antoinette and Olympia, they changed the world. Their decades-long friendship started in the following moment of connection. After Olympia heard the Reverend Antoinette Brown preach at Antioch, she wrote, "It was the first time I had heard a woman preach, and the sense of victory lifted me up. I felt as though the kingdom of heaven were at hand. The kingdom of heaven were at hand. A different future was possible." And then Antoinette offered Olympia a great gift. When Antoinette was young and wondering if she could really be a minister, Antoinette's mother pinned a white ribbon on her dress and said something like, "You can do it. I believe in you. Be brave." And when Antoinette felt discouraged, she would touch the ribbon and remember that she had that support. And so Antoinette always wore this white ribbon. After she preached at Antioch, Olympia confided in Antoinette that she too wanted to be a minister, but that it felt impossible. Antoinette pinned a white ribbon to Olympia's dress and said something like, "You can do it. I believe in you. Be brave." Eventually, Antoinette and Olympia brought a variation of this white ribbon to the cause of women's suffrage. And women across the United States wore a ribbon as a symbol that a different future was possible and that they were never alone. Both Antoinette at age 95 and Olympia at age 85 lived long enough to vote in the 1920 presidential election. I like to think they both wore their white ribbons that day.
Speaking of courage, I would just like to say, our little choir does have it. And this song is in honor not only of the American women who came before us, who led the way, but also in honor of the women in Iran who are just showing an extraordinary amount of courage right now.
Courage calls to courage. calls to courage. Oh, every day, every day, every day, every day. Courage, 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 calls to courage. Courage, calls to courage. Courage, calls to courage. Oh, every day, every day, every day, every day. We, the undersigned of the United States of America, we all women who are citizens have the right to vote. Courage, 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 calls to courage. Courage, calls to courage. Courage, calls to courage. Oh, every day, every day, every day, every day. Courage has a voice that cannot be silenced. The promise is yours, it is in your hands. Strong, free, be steadfast on the journey. Your voice, your vote, your right. Oh, courage, calls to courage. Oh, courage, calls to courage. Oh, courage, calls to courage. Oh, every day, every day, every day. Every day.
Whew. Courage calls to courage. Damon Davis, speaking as a Black man after 18-year-old Michael Brown was gunned down by police in 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri, says, "Fear is like a disease. When it moves like wildfire. But what happens when, even in the face of that fear, you do what you've got to do? That's called courage. And just like fear, courage is contagious." The Reverend Karen G. Johnston writes, "I will try to be brave. If you are not feeling brave, you can have some of mine. If I am not feeling brave, I will borrow some of yours. We will add our brave together, add it all up, so that our brave together light will outshine the shadow. We will add our brave together." Which brings me to why I am wearing my robe today. Pinned inside it, right here over my heart, is a tiny white ribbon that matches a white ribbon pinned inside a colleague's robe. It has been here since before I was ordained, when I first wore my robe. When I need to be reminded that I'm not alone, that I can be brave, that I have generations of spiritual ancestors whose courage calls on my own, and generations yet to come whose courage I am called to nurture, I touch it as a reminder. In the wider world outside of Unitarian Universalism, being a woman minister is still an act of defying gender norms. And even within our denomination, men's voices continue to minimize women ministers' truths. I couldn't preach about Reverend Olympia Brown today without wearing this white ribbon. Last week, our guest speaker, Craig, told us his story of coming out as gay and as the drag queen, Miss Moxie. Craig's story included those people, family and chosen family, who encourage him, who give him courage and love him fully. I don't know what the drag queen equivalent of a white ribbon is, but I'm sure it's fabulous. Earlier this week, I posted a reflection on Facebook about the grief of my divorce specifically, but more generally about how we need to have the courage to talk about uncomfortable things more often instead of pretending everything's fine. I admitted I was still struggling with loss and grief, even though my divorce was 4 years ago, as if I should be over it already. A few days later, I received this beautiful, tiny little chalice in the mail from a colleague. This is a colleague I don't know well at all. We met once many years ago when we were both in seminary, but otherwise we are only Facebook friends. But she gave me this gift of hope when I needed it. The colleague who sent me this little chalice was Reverend Karen G. Johnson, the person who wrote, "I will try to be brave. If you are not feeling brave, you can have some of mine. If I am not feeling brave, I will borrow some of yours. We will add our brave together, add it all up, so that our brave together light will outshine the shadow." I chose the title for this service, Adding Our Brave Together, a month ago based on that reading. She had no way of knowing I would be preaching her words today in this pulpit. And yet, this source of brave together light showed up in my mailbox when I most needed it this week. My favorite part, well, one of my favorite parts of her note to me was this: "This chalice is yours until you encounter the next person to whom it belongs." I am simply the caretaker of this light that found me when I most needed it. Courage is contagious. At some point, I will send it on to another colleague, hearing clearly Antoinette's mother's voice, and Antoinette's, and Olympia's, and Karen's, and my own. Courage comes from the word cor, meaning heart. So to encourage each other is to love each other, to give each other courage. This is the embodiment of our Universalist heritage. Olympia Brown's ministry and activism were grounded in her universalism, the sure knowledge that God is love and love is God, that there is nothing stronger in this universe than love, healing, saving, world-changing love, and that no one, including ourselves, is outside of love's embrace. In the late 18 and early 1900s, Olympia Brown was demonstrating for the right to vote for women. Today, we protest laws that continue to disenfranchise people of color. Then Olympia Brown worked tirelessly to be ordained as a woman. Today, we fight for reproductive and gender justice. Olympia Brown, Antoinette Brown, and countless other named and unnamed spiritual ancestors are the ones whose dreams we are living today and who give us courage to dream a new future into being. Their courage calls to my courage. Your courage calls to my courage. Our third principle, as Unitarian Universalist says, we covenant to affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. We covenant to encourage each other, to give each other courage, so that we may, in the words of Beverly and David Bumbaugh, so that we may call out each other's strengths, wisdom, and compassion that we never knew we had. So this week, I encourage you all to find some way to offer your brave to someone who needs it, to call out another's strength, wisdom, and compassion that they may have forgotten about. Or maybe your task this week is to thank someone whose courage called to your own when you most needed it. Or maybe you're not feeling brave right now and you need to borrow someone else's brave. How beautiful to know you don't have to be brave alone. We add our brave together to do the hard and courageous work of grieving, the daunting work of justice, and the holy work of community. You can do it. I believe in you. Be brave. Let's sing together. Number 1028, Fire of Commitment, joining our voices in the chorus that calls courage to courage. You may remain standing in body or spirit for our benediction. Here and here and here also there are others weeping and rising and gathering their courage. You belong to them and them to you. And together we will break through and bend the arc of justice all the way down into our lives. I invite you to place a hand on your heart or hold the hand of a neighbor, whatever is comfortable for you, as we sing our final benediction. Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Blessed be, go in peace.